Hi, I'm G. Keith Alexander, founder and CEO of Harlem America Digital Network and the host of What's Hot Harlem America with G. Keith Alexander. This episode, I get a chance to talk to one of my radio colleagues, Mr. Lenny Green, host of The Quiet Storm. And we get a chance to talk about how he got into broadcasting and how he decided to give up singing as a career to be a radio personality. We also talk about some inside things that only DJs would talk about. So you get a chance to be a fly on the wall.
Welcome to What's Hot Harlem America with G. Keith Alexander, the crossroads where culture, lifestyle, and community meet, all hosted by the legendary New York radio TV personality and proud Harlem American, G. Keith Alexander.
Well, hello there. Thank you so very, very much for joining us. I mean, this is going to be one fantastic show. Thank you so much for coming to the Harlem America Digital Network. This is the flagship show, What's Hot Harlem America with G. Keith Alexander. And today I've got a guy who his voice is heard all over the country. He's got this smooth, relaxing voice, and he's the host of that famous show called, what's the name of the show?
You want me to say it?
Yeah, what is it?
It's called The Quiet Storm.
All right, you see, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted him to say it. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Lenny Green, Mr. Radio, to Harlem America. How you doing, Lenny?
G. Keith Alexander, it is an honor and a pleasure. You know, he gave me too many wonderful accolades. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the man who I listened to when I didn't have a clue, didn't have any interest in even getting into radio. I'm a Brooklyn boy, born and raised, so you have to understand, growing up in New York City, there was one premier station that I got hooked on, and my mom always kept on, and that was WBLS. And this brother right here, Mr. G. Keith Alexander, and the illustrious other golden voices that I heard, little did I know I would be doing this. So I'm standing on your shoulders, sir. So you're very kind to give me this honor, and I appreciate it.
Well, hey, you know, that is so kind of you to say, and you've always been a real stand-up guy, and I've always admired you and your work. And but what I want to know is, what made you decide to give up singing, become a radio personality?
That's $1 million question, G. Keith. $1 million question. I don't know how to answer that directly, so I'm kind of go around the batch. So it wasn't until I went out of, at 9 years old, I started singing. I had an interest in singing at 9, and stuck with singing throughout my grammar school, throughout high school, and went to college. I got to Kingsborough Community College in Brooklyn with just taking liberal arts. My focus, my love, first love, singing. A couple of folks had been saying to me, "Oh, you should visit a radio station. Visit a radio station." I blew it off. I blew it off for at least a semester. Went by the radio station because they had a radio station on the campus. Like Kingsborough Community College, anybody who's watching from New York, and you go to Kingsborough Community College, it should have been a 4-year school. It's a community college, right? 2 years. But the campus is beautiful. It has its own private beach. It's right there on the water. It's beautiful. So I go eventually to the radio station, and G. Keith, instantaneously, it was like something happened. And I fell in love with what I was looking at. And had a couple of conversations with the program director, which is, you know, it's student run. And he said, "Hey, man, you want a show?" I'm like, "A show? What are you talking about? You want a radio show?" You know, I'm like, "Yeah, I guess." And they gave me a radio show. So he said, "Well, what do you want to do?" Again, college radio, you have multi-formats. So I was infused growing up in my household by my older brother, my mom, with jazz. So I simply said, a smooth jazz show. And that's how it started. They gave me, and the number 7 plays a very, very important role in my life, because the show that they gave me was on Sundays, which is the seventh day of the week,
Okay.
depending on how you look at it, at 7 p.m. So my shift was from 7 to 1 a.m. in the morning. 7 started a process with me when I finally got into doing the Quiet Storm stuff, whether it was Kissing After Dark at 98.7 Kiss, Whisper Softly when I was doing Connecticut, always started at 7 p.m. It
So
was
you've
crazy.
always you've always been into the romantic love music, smooth format.
Well, you know what? Who knew? Again, it's interesting because when I hear about uh, the younger generation, let's say the millennials in their 20s, listening and appreciating classic soul music, old school music, um, it's because they've been infused with that at a younger age. Well, again, my mom always kept radios on in my house. My family always kept radios on in their house. We were listening to WBLS all the time. I was infused, unbeknownst to me, with voices and with radio personalities. I didn't think about radio. I was thinking about becoming a second Michael Jackson. And I had my own singing group at one time, and we competed at the Apollo Theater. That was my focus. I was going to be a singer, man. I didn't think about no radio thing at all until that moment, that golden moment when I walked into the radio station at Kingsborough Community College.
Well, okay, DJ to DJ, radio personality to radio personality. There's some things that I'm going to ask you about, and I want to know, as a host of the Quiet Storm, do you get more phone calls from women or from men?
Easy question. Women.
All right. Now, I remember when I used to do overnights, I used to get phone calls from the same women every night at the same time. Does that happen for you?
It has happened in the past. And because of how radio is and because of us in this pandemic, obviously, a lot of us are doing things remotely. The radio station I work in Miami on, because I do New York and Miami,
Mhm.
we actually go into the radio station. So it's a variety of different people, but we do have what we would call radio host to radio host, regular committed P1 listener.
Oh, yes. And I can remember there was this one woman who would call me every night at the same time. And one night, she invited me to come by after 3 months of just talking on the phone, invited me to come by and visit her when my shift was off. And I was kind of hesitant, but I drove on
You
out.
wait.
Yes, I went on out. And when I got there,
Uh,
she opened the door and she just cracked the door open a little bit. And
right.
and it was dark behind her. There was
Mm,
no light behind her.
mm.
And I said, "Hi, I'm G. Keith Alexander. You invited me to come over." And she says, "Oh," and she opened the door real wide. And I got a chance to see her. And I said, well, I double parked my car downstairs because I wasn't sure that I was in the right place. Let me go down and park my car. And so I went down and drove off.
You never came back. That's a shame, G. Keith.
I
You
know
left that woman with
I,
high hopes of spending quality time with you.
I was a young guy, I wouldn't do that now. I've learned my lesson. I've learned to appreciate, but that was part of the DJ experience, so to
Mm,
speak.
wow.
So w-
That,
can you relate a story that perhaps a
G.
similar
Keith,
story?
you know what? You kind of caught me at a good time in my life. And the reason why I'm going to say that, I'm using that as a preface leading into this story. Because I'm not in a relationship. I'm not married at the moment. So, of course, I can relate to it. Yeah. I think this must be, now that you're sharing this with me, I
Yes.
can only imagine if I had the opportunity of sitting down with all of your colleagues from the era that you were on WBLS and listen to those stories. I'm sure the thing doesn't change. So, what's the most curious thing about our gig is that we in radio, we never see visualization. We're in a new world now where we can see people to a degree. So we're only audio. And just like they say to us, because I've heard many people say this about radio personalities. Oh, that's him? He don't look like he sound. You know? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we kind of say the same thing on the other side. And the voice is so misleading. I could promise you and could tell you what I hear the most.
What?
I thought you were 6 feet tall, dark skin, and at least 250, not 250, 250, maybe 280. I'm like, wow, really? So the voice is so misleading, and it will paint a picture in your mind of what happens or what you perceive this person to look like. So in leading into the story, because I know you like, well, get to the point, Lenny. Yes, I have been down the same road at a different time. I've done the same thing, except I didn't do what you did because I wasn't driving.
Okay.
I remember one of my buddies dropped me off in the Bronx, and he says, "Yo, man, you sure you want to do this?" Now this is late night. Now I'm doing the Quiet Storm stuff. So I was like, yeah, man, yeah, I definitely want to do this. You know, she sounded like a great person. You know, she was a model. You know, she was a model. I don't think she's modeling anymore, but she was a model. She work out, but yeah, I definitely want to do this. So it was almost like a scene out of a movie where. I'm walking out of his car. I'm walking slowly to the door.
Okay.
He stays at the car for a moment. He's putting the gear now from parking to drive. As he's about to push off, the door's opening up. Okay. And when the door opens, I really want to turn around and run. Drives off. I have no choice but to stay right there in the Bronx, because I'm a Brooklyn boy, and say, hi. Lenny Green. What's that? Come on in, Lenny.
Oh.
So, yes.
Yeah. Well, so you do a lot of events, a lot of MC work and hosting various events. Give me a scenario, a funny scenario or something that you can recall that stuck with you.
In hosting events, well, you just never know what's going to happen at every event. One thing you don't want, if you're in a venue, like a big venue, like in New York City, we have a venue called the Beacon Theater. It holds probably 2,000 people.
Right.
What you don't want is someone to introduce you. And I stopped having people. I said, let me introduce myself. But what you don't want, ladies and gentlemen, in New York City, is for somebody to go, like 3-4 people in a 2,000 seater.
Right.
Like, who the hell is this guy? Just give me the act. Give me the artist. Who the hell is it? So that's what you don't want. So that happened on a few occasions, and I stopped having people introduce me. I said, I prefer to introduce myself because I had a certain way of introducing myself.
Right.
Again, radio is theater of the mind.
That's right.
So perception. So I figured I'll start coming out. Let me hype up the audience. Let me get into the audience. That was my approach. So you guys, back in the early WBLS days, you guys were the celebrities, just as much as the celebrities were. Radio's changed, so we're not the celebrities like the celebrities. So I got to find creative ways of kind of introducing myself and coming out. But I guess the weirdest experience for me was I don't think I had any bad experiences, G.
Really?
I don't think.
Well, let me tell you, I was at KTU. I'd left BLS and gone to Disco 92 WKTU at the height of the disco era when we used to have to, we had bodyguards. We had bodyguards that, I had a bodyguard. All the jocks at KTU at one point had a bodyguard.
The radio station hired these bodyguards?
Yes, because John Lennon had gotten shot. And so they decided that they were going to give us all bodyguards. My bodyguard was a a lieutenant from the terrorist tactical squad.
Wow.
And I remember we used to travel in limousines. So this one event, we pulled up the limousine and people throwing themselves on the car and just draping themselves all over the car. And he had to kind of get out the car on the other side of the door and pull people off of the door where I was so I could get out. So I got out, went into the venue, got up on stage, did my hosting, and we had such a great time that before it was time to leave, I went to the edge of the stage and started shaking hands with the
Audience.
with the audience, and they were really excited. And this one woman, I bent down to say, to shake her hand and everything. She pulled me off the stage. I fell onto the floor on my back, and this woman was a rather large woman. She sat in my face.
Ooh,
I couldn't breathe.
I can only imagine what part of her body sat on your face.
Yes, that part. And I could not breathe, and I'm struggling to breathe, and I'm kicking my feet, and finally my bodyguard comes and pulls her off of me, and I get up and I go, and then he rushes me out. He rushes me out to the limousine, and then folks come and they jump all over the car again, and we had to kind of slowly ease out so that the folks wouldn't get hurt. But that was my experience.
Okay, so I can't speak of an audience situation, but I can speak of a stalker situation. I don't know if this is a part of your notes to talk about. So I've always, since I've been doing these love shows, I've had a few stalkers. One I had an order of protection by. And
Really?
as far as having bodyguards, ladies and gentlemen, I do have someone who watches my back. I have a couple of people that watch my back, but trust me, that money comes out of my pocket. I don't have no limousine. Whoever bodyguards me or watches my back, as I use the term, for that night, I'm normally riding in their vehicle. But I remember having a situation where the woman, well, there was a few situations where one woman parked herself outside the radio station every night and rolled up on me when I was going to meet a young lady who was waiting for me for us to go out to have dinner. Mm-hmm. And that was that was a really uncomfortable position because I didn't know who she was and she just rolled up. Another situation where I had to sneak out of the radio station out of a back door and run down the block to catch the train because this one woman was like really, really hawking me and then really wanted to get close to me. And again, we don't have the luxury in radio these days to have bodyguards at our convenience. And I can't afford to have a bodyguard 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So when I get off the air, I'm just leaving and trying to get home to enjoy my night. So those are horrible moments that, or I should say not horrible, but, interesting experiences that I've encountered. And I capped them up and buckled them up and packaged them up by saying, I'm appreciative really of how people have embraced what I do.
Fantastic. Well, Lenny, we have one more minute before we go to break. And I just want to say, Lenny, I want to invite the people to stay connected from work, home, or on the road. And they can remember to add Harlem America Digital Network's What's Hot Harlem America with G. Keith Alexander to their iPhone and iPad. Just download the official Voice America Talk Radio Network app. It's easy to use and it's always free. Just tell a friend. And also with the official app, you can stay connected and you can follow me and we'll have a great time together. Please tell your friends about it. And Lenny, when we come back, I'm going to surprise you with something. And I just discovered this the other day. And you don't know that I know it, even though we've had many conversations. So ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned, come back for What's Hot Harlem America with G. Keith Alexander and the smooth, suave, debonair, handsome Lenny Green.
Tune in every Friday to get your weekend kickoff early. Join the legendary G. Keith Alexander for What's Hot Harlem America. The flagship show of the new Harlem America Digital Network has something for everyone. From the latest in entertainment to empowerment, health and wellness, and more. We'll bring you a variety of fresh viewpoints, voices, and ideas. What's Hot Harlem America with G. Keith Alexander can be heard every Friday at 1 p.m. in New York and 10 a.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Variety Channel.
Welcome back to What's Hot Harlem America with G. Keith Alexander, and I've got my friend and colleague and radio legend, Mr. Lenny Green.
I'm not a legend, sir. I'm not a legend. I got a lot of steps to become a legend. You're the legend, and I follow in your footsteps.
Well, that's so kind of you. Following in my footsteps, that's a good segue, because I found out the other day, now I used to be an entertainment reporter over at Fox 5 here in New York.
Yes.
I found out the other day that you used to work at Fox also?
Yes. As an intern. Well, let's go back. Kingsborough Community College.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do an internship. I ended up at Fox, the TV station right there on the east side on 67th Street.
Right.
And I ended up in the traffic department.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And my summer, one of the many duties I had to do during that tenure was to clean out and organize the videotapes in their dusty storage room. It was me and another cat. My name is Eric. I'll never forget it, man. It was a hell of an experience. And what I would do on my breaks is sneak down to the other floor to watch Midday Live. Bill Boggs.
Right, Bill, yeah.
And I remember, was it Gwen Barrett?
Gwen Barrett, yes.
Yeah, she was the producer of the show.
Right.
I would just sit there in awe. And I was like, wow, one day I would like to do that. I'm just like looking. And then I would sneak in from time to time and watch them do the newscast. So yeah, that was my experience at Fox. And I had a wonderful experience. I had a good boss. I mean, after the internship, they offered me a job. So I started doing the commercial logs. I learned about that. And that's what led, that was one of my first gigs.
Well, what year was that? Now, I found out from Genevieve Michelle Bryan.
Hey, wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she, in fact, Genevieve is part of the team here at Harlem America as well.
Oh, is she?
Yeah. And also Natalie Ramsey. She's Natalie Ramsey Dexter. And she also worked there at the same time. But what year were you there? Because I was there from 88 to like 96.
It had to be within that time span.
So we were there together, but we didn't know each other. Okay.
No, who's paying attention to an intern? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, really, let's keep it real. No one's paying attention. I need you to get me some coffee. You need to empty that garbage. You need to get back and finish straightening up those videotapes. That's about it.
Well, hey, but look at you now. Okay, look at the intern now.
Blessings. By God's blessings, yes.
Fantastic. Speaking of the intern, I throw a little plug in for myself. The last film I did is called The Intern. So if anyone hasn't seen The Intern with Robert De Niro and Anne Hathaway and Rene Russo, then go take a look at it. And I'm with Robert De Niro the first day as he walks into the new job.
G. Keith, I want to say, man, I've always kept you front of mind as a man to leave radio and leap to the next level. And you did that. You became the voice. You are the voice of America when it came to commercials. I remember, and G. Keith won't remember me from a can of paint, but I remember visiting WBLS one time, and I told you this story before, but I want to share it with everyone. And they were giving me the nickel tour around. Mm-hmm. Bob Baldwin, who's a phenomenal jazz keyboardist, pianist, he was at that time interning at WBLS and working with Pat Prescott. So when he was giving me the nickel tour around, I remember him taking me into one of the production rooms, and Mr. G. Keith Alexander was in there. And I remember them saying, yo, G. Keith, man, we need you to read this copy. So I was smiling when you were reading before we went to break, what you were reading, because I remember observing you, and it was for Pierre Cardin. And ladies and gentlemen, this cat right here looked at the copy maybe once or twice and then read it flawlessly. And I'm like, oh my God, this dude is hot. And that was it. That was it. He gave the copy back to the guy. He walked out. See, you had the luxury of being in major market radio, when I got started in the radio, G. Keith, I was on an AM station. We had to cut the commercial literally on the splicing tape, produce the commercial, put music on it, label the label, put it on a cart, and then put it in the rack.
Yeah,
G.
yeah,
Keith
yeah.
just came in, read the commercial flawlessly. I'll see you later. Boom, he's out.
Well, let me tell you, Lenny, it wasn't always that way. When I got started in radio, Frankie Crocker was hanging out with Sugar Ray Robinson Jr., the fighter's son. And Frankie gave me some copy. And he says, here, read this. And I started trying to read it, and I was struggling, and I was still stumbling over words and things. And Frankie and Ray Robinson Jr., they were laughing at me, and they were laughing. It was belly laughs, and they were laughing in slow motion. I could see them laughing. It was like slow motion, ha ha ha. And I said to myself, after that terrible experience, I said, you know what? I'm going to show them. I'm going to become the best copy reader they've ever heard.
Wow.
And that's when I went on to do voiceovers for, Burger King, McDonald's, Mercedes Benz, Chrysler,
T-Mobile.
all of them, yeah. T-Mobile, and so it worked out that their laughing at me was like oil for my roller skates.
Yeah, you became the best of the best, sir.
Well,
you are the best of the best.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So, Lenny, what is it you love about radio now?
The same thing I loved about it when I first, when I first discovered it. It's a connection to people without you even knowing you're connecting to people. My prayer every day is that I can just reach one person, maybe by something I said, by something I played, something I spoke on. And it has happened. And I remember a very touching story. Well, I have a few touching stories, but there's two that comes to mind off the top. One was a situation where I took a moment out in between, songs to just have a conversation with someone. I don't know what compelled me to stay on the telephone longer than what I did. And I don't think I did anything special. I did, I'm a spiritual man, so I'm not a man who walks around quoting the word, but I just speak from different standpoints and different perspectives. And I remember saying something positive and just kind of uplifting this person's spirit. A week later, the person called me back and thanked me for having that conversation with them because they were contemplating suicide at that particular moment. Who knew? I remember another story where this woman called me up, and it was a cold night. And she asked to speak with me. I had an intern answering my phones, and she said, is it possible you can help me? And I'm like, well, what seems to be the problem? So my daughter and I, we don't have no place to stay. She's in the car, and we can't afford this hotel. And, I was kind of leery at first to kind of go along with it. But when I checked out everything and worked out everything, I was able to provide an opportunity for her to stay at least in the hotel for a few nights, because first thing I thought about was my mom. My mom, who I miss tremendously to this very, very second. She was such a phenomenal, strong woman because as a single parent, she provided for me, my older brother, and my younger adopted brother. And she did it well, so I just thought about the single mothers who have it hard, and they don't ask to be put into a situation like that, but yet they're still giving unconditional love and admiration and doing whatever they got to do within their means to support their children and provide for their children. And that, and I was just thankful. I was just thankful and grateful that God had it in my way for me to provide and allow this person to at least get some form of comfort and peace and safety in the cold winter months. So I'm thankful for the opportunity.
Well, that's a beautiful story, and I'm sure that to this day that the woman is thankful. But I've often said that being a radio personality or a DJ, sometimes we're the only connection to the outside or to how can I say it, to fun or even happiness for some people. Because if you're stuck in a hospital bed somewhere and you have a radio, or if you're in your car and you're not feeling well, and you turn on the radio, and this guy makes, or this woman makes you happy by playing the music you enjoy.
Right.
We provide a public service, and we don't necessarily always look at it that way, but we're really serving the public and helping the public make it through the day. And so there's been times when I've been walking the street and people come up to me and say, hey, I'll never forget, I heard you say such and such on the radio, and it turned me around. Or, you gave me some advice once when I met you on the street 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And, it helped me quite a bit. So there is a service that radio personalities perform. And I just love being in the business, and I love getting the feedback and the response
Yes.
that we so often get from folks.
And we're just like the post office, G. Keith. Through rain, sleet, snow,
We're there.
we're there.
That's right. And even when 9/11 hit,
Yeah.
they called me into the station, and the whole, everything was pandemonium, but we go in and we try to do what we need to do right there behind the microphone.
Yes, sir.
So what's planned for you now? What are you working on now?
To get to your level in life. The next, whatever, is to really, I'm blessed to not only, like I said a moment ago or earlier, to not only work in New York and Miami. The New York show is a syndicated show. And we're in a few markets around the country, from Oklahoma City to Alabama to Georgia to Pittsburgh.
You want to give a shout out? You want to give a shout out to the radio stations?
I can, if my brain is working the right way. So much love going out, of course, first and foremost to WBLS, the foundation. That holds down the tri-state of New York at 107.5. We got Magic 100.9 in Augusta, Georgia. We got WTUG in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. We got Jammer 983 in Milwaukee. We got Heart and Soul in Oklahoma City. And of course we have, am I missing somebody? Global 99.5 in Nassau, Bahamas. And I believe I'm Pittsburgh is 107.3 to beat. And as of October, in a couple of weeks, we'll be back on in Louisiana, Lake Charles, Louisiana. So I'm looking forward to that. And not to mention the countless and endless people that listen to us online because of iHeart. So it's amazing how many people we can touch. So the goal is to grow the brand more, get in a few more markets around the country with the syndication show, continue to work in Miami as well, and do that Quiet Storm, which is a separate show from the New York show. And if God has it for me to enhance the brand and do more, like, cross over into TV before I start wrinkling up in life, I'll be thankful and grateful for that blessing.
So some of the people that you've had the pleasure of interviewing, like Jay-Z and Patti LaBelle and a whole litany of others, your favorite two interviews?
That's unfair. That's
Okay.
unfair.
All right.
That's an
All
unfair
right.
question.
All right, your favorite 5 interviews then.
Only thing I can say, well, let's start with this. I've had the honors of not only interviewing, but bonding, becoming a friend of, and working with Isaac Hayes. Isaac Hayes is the reason why I have my hairstyle. Isaac Hayes is the one who shaved my hair off.
Oh, really?
In the studios of 98.7 Kiss. Honest to God, true story. And he says, I'm going to introduce you. And then this is the time when Frankie Crocker came over to be to 98.7 Kiss. And I remember Isaac Hayes unveiling me at a huge concert that 98.7 Kiss was doing at Madison Square Garden for the first time bald. I was sweating everything out of my body. So Isaac Hayes, I had the honors and pleasure to sit down with one of the deepest baritone voices of our time that complimented Isaac Hayes, and that was Barry White. I sounded like Mickey Mouse compared to Barry White. So that was a blessing. Luther Vandross. Luther, I served as assistant PD, and I served as music director at so many radio stations before I came to New York, and even when I got to New York. So I had the honors of just bonding in certain ways with just different people. But Luther would come by to radio station to do other people's shows, and then finally came by my Kissing After Dark show when I was on Kiss. And what ended up happening was he came in by himself, and he was starting answering the request lines, like just talking to people at random. Wonderful, amazing experiences. So I'm going to give you those three because they have transitioned. And the rest is just wonderful friendships. I don't even call them interviews. I like having conversations with people.
Right. Like we're doing now.
Like we're doing now. Yeah. Because you get a different angle, you get a real authentic perspective as opposed to the stereotypical, stuff. Right. And I didn't learn that technique until I really started paying attention to what I was doing, because I would realize in the very beginning, I didn't know this, but I would write my questions down and I would just pay attention to my questions. I wouldn't do anything else. I wasn't paying attention to what they were saying.
Exactly.
And you miss so much in terms of piggybacking and enhancing a moment without listening and really paying attention, which is a lesson that we all have to learn just in our regular relationships.
Well, the three artists that you mentioned, I once interviewed Isaac Hayes when I didn't know what I was doing. I was a Rudy Poot in the business. And then later on in life, he and I ended up doing a Buick voiceover together, a commercial together for Buick. And he was the one who told the story of Buick, and then I was the voiceover narrator. And then you mentioned Barry White. I interviewed Barry before he became Barry White. He had just come out with Walking in the Rain with the One I Love. And I had a TV show called Alexander here on cable. It was Time Warner at the time. And when I was interviewing Barry says, well, gee, Keith, all I want to do is record 3 albums, and then I want to retire and manufacture children's toys.
Wow.
And he had a big afro, and he had this wild looking shirt on, and he wasn't the Barry White that we eventually came to know. And I guess it got so good to him that he decided not to retire and manufacture children's toys. And then the third person you mentioned was Luther Vandross. Yeah. Well, when Luther was a little chubby kid just singing jingles, he and I lived in the same building on 55th Street.
Wow.
And then later on, when he became Luther Vandross, he became one of my favorite male singers. And I remember the day that he had just recorded with Aretha Franklin, what was it, Jump to It or Jump?
Yeah, he produced that.
Yeah. I had just gotten off the air at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm walking down the street. I see Luther standing on the corner of 57th Street and 5th Avenue, and he's got his Walkman and his earplugs in his ear. And I walk up and say, Luther, what are you doing? He says, man, G. Keith, you got to listen to this. I just finished producing Aretha Franklin. You got to listen to it.
It was hot.
And he put the earplugs in my ear, and I'm listening. Wow, it was hot. It was hot.
Jump to it.
Yeah. So I miss all 3 of those folks. So we got 30 seconds left. I just want to remind people that you can call in and speak to Lenny at 866-472-5788. And if you have any questions for Lenny or any comments, please give us a call right now. This is G. Keith Alexander with What's Hot Harlem America, and you're listening to Lenny Green, that voice. When you come back, I'm gonna tell you about the voice when you come back, Lenny. So we'll be right back after this.
Tune in every Friday to get your weekend kickoff early. Join the legendary G. Keith Alexander for What's Hot Harlem America. The flagship show of the new Harlem America Digital Network has something for everyone. From the latest in entertainment to empowerment, health and wellness, and more, we'll bring you a variety of fresh viewpoints, voices, and ideas. What's Hot Harlem America with G. Keith Alexander can be heard every Friday at 1 p.m. in New York and 10 a.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Variety Channel.
Thank you so very, very much. That's the wonderful Kever Brunei. And Lenny, I want to tell you, on radio, I've had a chance to do different things with my voice as well as in voiceovers and things. But when I'm talking on the phone to a woman, I automatically go into this, hey, how you doing? Yeah, this is G. Keith.
I believe you.
No, this is not Lenny Green. This is G. Keith Alexander.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Yeah. Hey, well, I don't know why people do that to me a lot, but even when I'm doing interviews, they're like, oh, I think I better lower my voice. I'm like, no, please, let me keep my job. Let me do what I love to do. I don't think about what I do. I really don't. I don't even know how I got the voice. When I was 5 years old, I know I had my tonsils taken out because my tonsils, my mom said, were enlarged.
Mhm.
And shortly after that, maybe 10 years after that, my voice started to change, maybe relatively early than most kids. But trust and believe this, my voice wasn't as deep as people think it was back then. I think just like anything else, when you constantly work at something, you cultivate it. Again, I've been infused by listening to golden voices all my life. And, I'm an audio guy now, like I'm a radio guy. So when you hear different voices, and I heard, like I said, your voice, Frankie's voice, Vaughn Harper's voice, Jeff Troy, Jeff Fox, Bugsy, Imhotep, Gary Bird, and the list goes on and on and on. All my life, you guys played a very integral role in my shape, in my mind. And the brain is a very strong organ. So, after a while, ladies and gentlemen, you start conforming. You can never be that person, but you start conforming or styling or a creative style that's reminiscent of other people that you have been exposed to. So I guess I got to blame Vaughn Harper and you trying to imitate, Vaughn Harper, because that's who you were imitating, Vaughn Harper. Vaughn had the voice, the depth, like 5 feet below sea level. It's crazy.
Well, I always tell this story about Vaughn. I was in the street one day talking to some people, and I was talking about radio, and I said, yeah, and I hang out with Vaughn Harper sometimes. And this woman's walking by, and she says, Vaughn Harper, are you talking about the guy on the radio? I said, yes. She says, boy, when I wash my hair, I stand in front of the speakers, and he blow dries my hair.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
That voice, he had a voice that just, it made things tremble when he spoke,
He did. No, he did. He really had a really resonant voice. There was a movie, oh man, I forget the actor off the top of my head. I'm so sorry. But he played the role of Petey Green.
Oh, yeah.
Petey
Yeah.
Green.
And
And in that movie, Cedric the Entertainer played the Quiet Storm role. And I remember, and I guess maybe they took a take off of, I got to find out the name of the movie. You got to watch it again because it's a great movie. And this woman came to the radio station, and the man came to the radio station. Yeah, a man came to the radio station. He was complaining about the guy who did the Quiet Storm, because his wife is in love with him, even though she never met him. So he wanted to get into a fight with Cedric the Entertainer, who played the role of the Quiet Storm guy.
Right,
and Cedric
right.
the Entertainer was kind of he was like extravagant with it because he had 2 Afghan dogs that he would bring into the studio while he was doing the show, and he had the glass of whatever cognac and wine, and it was so funny though. I gotta find that movie and tell you to watch it because you're gonna love it. It's a radio movie for real.
Did you ever watch, what was it, Cincinnati?
Oh, WKRP.
Yeah, WKRP in Cincinnati and Venus Flytrap.
Being his flat drive. But you know what the crazy thing about that? No, being in radio now, they never wore headphones.
Right. You know what? You're absolutely right.
So I'm like, well, how did he know when the vocals were going to come into the song? I mean, he was good at it. And don't get me wrong, I have ran into a studio running a little behind schedule, or something happened and did not have enough time to. I didn't have even 3 seconds to grab my headphones without having dead air. So I just wung it. I brought my music down to a certain level. I kept my mic at a certain level, and either you knew the song and you could hit post, and hitting post is when right before the vocals come in, or you just took a chance and kept your break really, really tight and short, so that way you wouldn't step on them singing. But it has happened.
Yeah, yeah. Well, now, have you ever put on a record and had to go to the bathroom?
Oh,
and either you get locked out, and the record continues to go, or you don't get back in time. Has that ever happened to you?
No. Well, first of all, I think at BLS, I heard about the locked doors at BLS back in the day.
Yeah,
No, we have locked doors in Miami, but we don't have locked doors in New York. I don't know what I would have done, but I have gotten back and dead air has occurred because I stayed in the bathroom too long. I miscalculated time, because you're thinking time, because we didn't have speakers. I don't know if you guys had speakers. We didn't have speakers in the bathroom.
No, we didn't have speakers in the bathroom. No.
So, you're calculating, okay, how much time, and you have to go as soon as the record starts.
Right.
Because you got to time yourself to get to the bathroom, and then time yourself how long you'll stay in the bathroom to get back.
And you're running to the bathroom. You're not just walking. You're running to the bathroom and trying to run back,
So, ladies and gentlemen, you'd be surprised how we can figure things out in 4 and 5 minutes.
Not only that, but I tell people, because of radio, I've learned to think 3 steps ahead. Because you know what you're going to do, but then you got to also know what you're going to do after that and after that, so that when you open the mic, you can not only talk, but you can reach for whatever you have to reach for, or do what you need to do while you're talking.
So did that help you when you decided to get into TV?
Did it help me when I decided to get into TV? Yeah, I would say it helped, because it gave me an opportunity to be able to either read from the teleprompter and know that in the back of my head, okay, when you finish reading this, you got to do this and you got to do that before it's time to bring in the next segment. So yes, it has helped me in life as well, even in dating. But I won't go in, but I won't go there.
Well, G. Keith, I need you to write the book on that, because and this may sound surprising to you, but I'm a little shy, and people wouldn't think so. But when it comes, especially when I meet a young lady for the first time, I'm just kind of get to know her. She's agreed to come out with me on a date, or maybe she's coming over to the to the place for the date. How do you get to step 2 comfortably? How do you get to step 2? And I almost feel like it's pressure in order to get to step 2, because I do this love thing. People kind of expect certain things, but then you don't want to overstep your boundary, because you want to be, well, my mama raised me to be a gentleman. So
certainly, exactly. Well, it is sort of a chess game, okay? And I don't mean CHEST game, right. But it's sort of a chess game. You have to pick your moments to take your next step. But if you're thinking 3 steps ahead, you kind of know how to maneuver that situation, so that when you take the second step, you're not out of pocket, so to speak.
I'm trying to perfect that. One would assume that I have perfected the art, but I'm still working on the art of romance. But I love. I call myself a hopeless romantic. And I do like romancing, which is a lost art form.
Yes, it is. I'm semi-retired now, but I still I still consult. And,
you consult, okay? Well, yes. I have to become one of your clients then, because I probably need some help.
But you've had some psychologists on during your romancing segment
Yeah.
and you guys have tackled some of those issues.
Well, you know what? Yes, something different and unusual for a Quiet Storm format. I created a platform for a bit of conversation. I think it's one. It's there's so many people out here these days, and even from back in the day, that are challenged with things in their relationship or personal things that they may going through. I mean, October, for instance, is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we need people who can come home or who are in the car to learn and become informed and become aware of certain things. And who better than a radio platform to do that for you, and at the same time, give you the music that you enjoy hearing. So I'm not going to overload your circuit with all the information back to back. I'm going to give it to you in segments. So because we have created Confessions of Love within the infrastructure of the Quiet Storm, it gives me a platform to not only bring on psychiatrists and therapists, but whether it's sex therapists or whether it's just therapists for mental health, or for dealing with mental issues or dealing with health issues. I use that segment for various things, and I'm going to be using that segment coming up in the election as well, because I think it's important. And I'm glad to know that my nieces and her generation of millennials are fusing together to vote for the first time or for the second time. And I think it's important that we continue to encourage and inspire our youth to exercise that freedom that they rightfully have in order to preserve our democracy.
Most definitely. Now, you've even had on our radio friend, psychologist Dr. Faith Brown, a
Oh, she's
couple of
phenomenal.
times.
She's phenomenal. She's insightful. She's so varied and wide varied with all the knowledge that she has brought forth, with the advice that she has brought forth in helping people. And yeah, she's like a welcome entity on the Quiet Storm. So I thank you for introducing me to Dr. Faith Brown, because she is the best of the best, quintessential.
Well, we've got about 3 minutes left on this wonderful conversation that we're having.
I
I
thank
mean,
you,
it's
man, for this.
pleasure's mine. It's not all, how often do you get to uh, radio guy to radio guy to kick it about the industry and about those little inside things that happen to us. And I think it's important that the audience, they get to hear Lenny Green talk about his life in depth, and so I thought it
Thank
was
you.
nice to be able to invite you here.
It's odd being on this side of the microphone and someone asking me, because you know yourself, we don't get those opportunities in radio to be
Exactly.
the one who's being interviewed. We're normally doing the interviewing.
Exactly.
So this is a wonderful treat for me as well. It's challenging because you don't know what the curve is, but but you know because you threw that curve at me a little earlier. But that's cool. That's cool, Keith. I can handle it. I can handle it.
Oh,
So no, this is
fantastic.
a great honor to do, man. And again, I thank you for this opportunity.
Well, I always say that if we don't tell our own stories, who else will?
I have a wonderful concept that I need you to be a part of. And matter of fact, I wrote your name down, Vinnie Brown's name down, and a host of other people. So remind me to talk about this concept, because I think it will definitely work. And you have got to. Not, I'm not asking to. You got to be a part of it.
Well, thank you. I guess I'll say thank you before I know what it is.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes,
All right.
yes. No
Because
question.
I trust you, Lenny
Yes,
Green.
yeah, I know you do. And you
Okay.
know what? I'm a
What?
good guy to trust.
Well, yes, you are.
My mama raised me right. So I'm not going to get you into any bad trouble. It's going to be great. You're going to say, Lenny, I should have thought of this, but I'm glad you did.
All right. Fantastic. Fantastic.
And
So
it brings together radio people.
that's beautiful. So 2 minutes to go. What advice might you have for uh, young people wanting to get into radio?
To build your brand, but find somebody who you want to model yourself after, not be, model yourself after, whether it's a style, whether it's their approach to doing certain things, and then study them, and study many voices, and find out how can you do it better, or how can you do something different. I think we have to learn how to be our own individuals, but the most important thing, understand and respect those who have walked before you, and know you have to do the work before it gets to the next level. I think we're living in a day and age, and to all the young folks that are locked in tonight, But today, where we want things instantaneously, even growing folks want things instantaneously. So you have to do the work in order to grow the brand. It took me 12 years to get to New York, and now, by God's grace, I've been in New York now, New York City radio alone for over 20 years. So paying attention, that's all.
Fantastic. Well, Lenny, this has been such a pleasure, and we've had many conversations via the phone and in person. But I'm going to hold this one at very high esteem of being able to have you for a whole hour on the radio. So you have a great day
You have
and
a
a
great
better
day.
one tomorrow. And remember, you folks listening out there, this is the Harlem America Digital Network with his flagship show, What's Hot Harlem America with G. Keith Alexander, every Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Please join us. And until that time, you have a great day and a better one tomorrow. And don't judge your brother or sister too harshly until you walk a mile in his or her shoes or whatever they're wearing.
Great.
Take care. Bye-bye.